Looking back on periods of my life, there was this feeling that rode my shoulder, whispering in my ear like a slimy vizier. They hate you, sire. Recede into yourself. Recede. It's the scar from bungling the dap, from spilling the blue corn tortilla chips onto the lawn at the cookout, magma running in the veins and frost fringing the spine. Shame. I see all along now that it was shame. I'm older now, wiser, my adolescent shame susurrus smoldering as I surf down the vines of my consciousness to see where I can find the seeds of my behavior. There it is, the Catholic's muse. What are you doing down here? I'm not part of your subscription service paid in painful Sundays, but my propensity for shame was there, and now I see why certain stories attach themselves to my skull, tapping around. The glass cleared and I see in the mirror of Naoko Yamada's A Silent Voice adaptation, or what I will call Koe no Katachi from now on, my reflection, why its arrow shot into my aorta. Its core is a depiction of shame and all the things that sprout from it, miscommunication, anxiety, the worst faith interpretations of what you see and hear, the damage of shame, of miscommunication, but coming out of the other side's healing. But shooting the elephant in the room with a harpoon, I'm writing particularly on the anime movie adaptation. On principle, I believe in putting more stock into source material than adaptations that play telephone with the original story, but my heart is hostage to Naoko Yamada, my favorite voice in this medium. In Kyoto Animation, what a crew! Salary, trained in-house, deeply understanding of art, healthy working conditions, chewing on the cheese of creativity, iced with ideas. My worries about adaptations either reading the source material like Kai Cenat or botched because it's thrown into the spiny hamster wheel of the anime industry aren't here. Naoko Yamada, Kodak called at length with scriptwriting legend Reiko Yoshida and mangaka Yoshitoki Oimi to feel out what absolutely should be included in the adaptation as to not dilute the core of the work through its rearranging. Yamada felt that if she didn't rearrange the film, it wouldn't have been able to match the energy and charm the original manga had, equating the love, respect, and resolve she felt towards the manga and author to the manga being a daughter whose hand she was asking for in marriage. Sure, the movie is missing punished Mashiba beating down on 12-year-old bullies like Batman.
I hope you choke on a motherfucking cheese stick, you nasty, greasy bitch.
But the quality of the movie speaks for a resolve and understanding of this art. And I agree that an adaptation needs something different, because you aren't trying to replace the original but work with it. There was no pressure on her telling a story with deafness as subject matter. She felt lucky even. Animation can allow the artist to describe what is not actually there. She says if there's no sound, I can express the lack of it through color, vibration, the drawings themselves. This is the very approach of the movie, stripping much of the manga monologuing and converting it to animation, giving form to feelings through abstract visuals or intricate body language amplified with animated expression. It's Yamada's bread and butter, stories about the struggle to communicate by focusing on indirect communication, by making the characters more opaque, intentions and words obfuscated from the audience. Shouya and shouko become more empathetic. Not all sign language is translated directly for the audience, like how not all verbal language is translated for shouko. You have to interpretate like she does. Similarly, Shouya mutes the world and interprets it through his self-degrading ventriloquism. It's like when I drive 20 minutes out in the country and have to assume the thick noises everyone's mouthing are racist. Just laugh, say pulled pork to distract them, and book it. Not all information will be understood at first glance. Yamada suggests that the flowers interspersed between scenes have intentional symbolism, but David Lynch's that meaning.
No, I won't.
She says that fluency of flower language runes isn't necessary for understanding. Actually, it might even be better for the audience to focus on the feelings drawn by the shapes and colors of a flower. The touch it gives the audience is more important. Stimulating the desire to figure out another's language on your own is part of the thematics. Certain aesthetic choices flit the work with kindness, clement colors, glossy water, flashes of flowers and lights. The line work shuns straight lines or draws them shaky to prevent any iota of edge. The reverse of Tetsuya Nomura's finger-pricking line work Hair isn't supposed to draw blood, man. Yamada's intention was to balance the movie's world with beauty through interposing gorgeous but fleeting images of symbols like flowers between scenes, to accumulate small indirect pieces of information to convey something to the audience. It's adverse to imbuing the story with romantic gloom. Even tears swallow up color. It's beautiful supraliminal messaging. That's different from subliminal messaging, where the Star Fox soundtrack unperceivably whispers, "Draw the characters morbidly obese and put it exclusively on DeviantArt." Art director Mutsuo Shinohara recalled being approached by Yamada saying, "I want the world to look so beautiful it's almost scary." She must have said that hovering 10 feet above his cubicle, eyes glowing ruby, cause he did that shit like his life depended on it. She's my goat, my artistic anima, possibly the reason I love blur effects. The anamorphic lens look to this film has me carbonating. Even the aesthetic team mentions, yeah, she loves those goddamn blur effects. In the color palette she picked, the milky and pastel sticks to my soul. According to color designer Naomi Ishida, the characters have a light blue edge highlight added to them, like the sky is reflecting off of them, rimmed with the color of adolescence, Yamada calls it. Shinohara felt that the intent was for the vibe of a sunny spring day. Oddly, the spring aesthetics harmonize with the solemn subject matter. It feels honest. It's not trying to pull the wool over the eyes of the audience with a biased chocolate box perspective or one of overwhelming angst. It's a straight depiction of both life's imperfections and beauties. In an interview with Cartoon Brew, the interviewer tells Naoko Yamada that her characters feel alive, that her work shows love towards humans and a trust towards the world when depicting them. She says the secret to this approach is to accept everything as it is. I think it's very, very difficult to achieve in real life, but I always hope strongly that I can do it. At the onset, the motives of shouya is suggested limpidly without directly stating, "I'm gonna kill myself." A pinprick of light ripples over koi, then a week floated through in staccato, a ripped calendar, a job quit, stuff sold away, a bank account emptied and gifted. The matter is weighty yet impressed upon liminally, giving the impression that shouya nearly dissociates to his death. The near-suicide attempt a dusk dream broken by sudden fireworks pressing on his senses. As he heads towards Shoko's sign language class, bokeh blobs signify the synapses firing up memories of a punk kid living life like he's bigger than death to the Who's My Generation, leaping off of bridges, embracing his two best buds in elaborate ways only men who swear they aren't gay can, playing a nondescript bullet hell akin to buying a cookie-only branded cookie. In the context of the opening montage it plays to, the song suggests a punkish, self-concerned, thrill-seeking boy in shouya trying to stave off boredom, needing the Sudoku puzzles they use to stimulate prize-winning horses. His mechanical pencil's lead lengthens as a blur in his torpid gaze and fidgets with it disinterestedly during Shoko's introduction. Then the death bomb is dropped. His brain, trained on games, sends up a flare that he's unlocked something new on this monotonous shoot-em-up. His doldrums, the lead, breaks. Movies are a way of communicating, transcending above the limits of direct verbal language with synesthesia. The moment Yamada heard about the story of Koe no Katachi, she thought it could be a work that integrates its themes alongside the imagery and sounds to create a sensorial experience. This movie had animators and Foley artists going surgical. When a teacher speaks from the front of the class, his voice warps in the proper dimensions. He taps Shouko on the shoulder with a dab on her shirt, making a slight tactile impression. She wrenches her little limbs around a backpack as big as her body to take out a pre-prepared notebook. The paper creases from her stiff grip, her forced, nervous smile hovering above. Promptly, her presence impacts the classroom. The teachers and students don't know how to congeal with Shouko. The teacher doesn't accommodate for Shouko. He begins a lecture like he forgot that a deaf girl is in his class, and her head turns from side to side, lost. Possibly because she has some younger siblings at home, Ueno picks up some of the slack and helps Shouko during lectures. Everything here is from the perspective of a Capri Sun sucking kid, so the neglect of the teachers and the system is beyond the perimeter of Shouya's his focus. Instead, it suggests throughout these details in his periphery. While it might seem considerate to treat someone like Shouko the same as the others, it's not really fair when they don't have the same privileges. It's the old equality versus equity argument, and Takeuchi sensei and the school go for the neoliberal bullshit. Their half-assed handling of Shouko creates ripples among the students. Ueno is exasperated that she gets scolded with no particularity on how she reads aloud. Takeuchi's sentiment is essentially, "You suck, kid. Get good, lol." Yet when Shouko reads aloud and obviously can't match the same standards he gave Ueno, he chooses to accept Shouko for once. It's unfortunately not unusual for kids to feel animosity towards kids who receive indelicate preferential treatment, in my experience. And this animosity festers by directly affecting these kids, not being able to compete in the choir competition or not being able to make their own notes, and even being proposed to dedicate 3 minutes of precious Jesus-blessed homeroom a day to learn sign language. Eventually the resentment will build up into the petty. Soon they'll be saying, "She looks like she eats Oreos too loud." Ueno asserts her dissent at learning sign language, and Takeuchi sensei indirectly reaffirms this by saying nothing. Anime protagonist wall-leaning, pushing up his glasses, thinking, "I look so cool when I let hate crimes happen." Finally, the stage is set for the bullying to begin when Sahara, the only volunteer for sign language education, stops coming to school because of Ueno's disembodied harassment. With quick frames, we see Shouya noticing all these moments, construing Shouko as an inconvenience to others. He tries to clumsily communicate this to Shouko through an apathetic distance he keeps by nudging her attention with pebbles. It isn't considerate words he gives, but a gravelly vocalization of his point of view. Obviously, Shouko doesn't know what he's saying, so she cuts straight through with purpose. "Let's be friends." In frame shot with his eyes, all her gestures are out of the center of his eyesight, cut quickly. He's not focused on her feelings. Framing, interposition, and inexplicit character animation throughout the film makes suggestions. Ueno having a crush on Shouya isn't outright said in the movie, but you can feel it from how she observes him with lingering or quick glances, using a teasing comment over a new girl in class as an excuse to touch him. When Shouya starts going out of his way to pick on Shouko, Ueno is so down for this boy baddie she starts hoeing the disabled to share some of his attention. When the sign language teacher proposes learning sign language, Shouya flexes his hand and blush specks his cheeks, the synapses sparking a flash of her smile, considering what it would mean to communicate with her clearly. But he proceeds to misunderstand why Ueno is frustrated with Shouko, why Sahara stops coming to school. Maybe he even misunderstands his own physical reaction to her, the way young boys confuse the strange heat as cooties, and then talk about it like McCarthy talked about communism.
"Destroy public health and social welfare, or the cooties will take you."
What starts as chalk libel turns physical, escalating without the assertions of shame-bearing, not concerned enough with herself, Shouko, and deals permanent damage. Shouko only asserts herself after this, but by trying to make friends with Shouya, her only conversation tool is tossed into the pond. She jumps in, the memories warp. He's traded places with her. The pattern will transfer to him soon. With scars on Shoko's ear and her mom's bank account, the jig is up. There's no way there isn't any bullying. Awareness of his actions sees him for the first time. His hand twitches, beginning to raise before his teacher makes another trip and singles him out. Shouya was never this psycho that watched manosphere videos of guys sitting in pies and sniffing it. He's a kid with a propensity for jumping in rivers, little understanding, and no communication polish. When he's put on the spot like this, the teacher convincing his friends to blame him, he's going to clumsily fire back with some exaggeration. Shimada looks like he got hit by Shouya's accusation, trust breaking in a single blow and setting the stage for Shouya to be the victim next. Kawaii cries and the class comes center frame with cold stares, letting us know that the bully Shouya stage play has a Hamilton-level demographic. Beat for beat, Shouya is subjected to a verse of his own bully montage, except he's framed alone. His perpetrator's on the edge of or outside the frame. In his memory, the blame is placed solely on himself. He's been slapped with awareness, watching his mom injured on the ear and finances, the same way he injured Shouko. Confused by her desk tampering and forced smile, it feels like he pushes her to say what he's feeling, that he's a piece of shit, scum of the earth, any adversarial idiom. The feelings between the two reach a corrosive crescendo, communicating their feelings in a heartbreakingly tactile fight animated by Minoru Ota, who drew the scene with memories of scrimmages between kids at the rugby pitch close to home reeling in his head. Naoko Yamada and Kyoto Animation's thin aesthetic animation draws out empathy in scenes like this. It's why I gravitate towards the work. Scenes aerate through the screen. I shift in my seat, the chair and air creaking uncomfortably. But I need to feel it. Wiping away the graffiti he never had to see before because of Shouko, he's left with the realization he never tried to understand her. Learning she transferred out, his mechanical pen clicks buffer for a second, his heart creaking. As I graft my brain to this movie, I see all the failures, but understand the characters more, or understand where my point of view is limited to Shouya's periphery. It's easy for me to point out all the wrongdoing from my comfortable, omniscient observation tower, eating my spicy salmon fillet that I burned down my whole neighborhood to pan-sear. I doubt Ueno cares about the choir competition like that, and as someone inconsistently attempting to learn a second language and has taken a course in sign language in college, 3 minutes a day to learn a second language with kid buff neuroplasticity is actually a solid idea, not inconvenient. With this bias, I could admonish Ueno, Takeuchi sensei, the school, goddamn Shinzo Abe, Yasuhiro Nakasone, Margaret Thatcher, and Ronald Reagan, and say, if I was here, I would have stopped all this shit and did 9/11 myself. I even see how the well-meaning sign language teacher condescends the class in Shouko, clutching her hands together, mouth corrugating, sweat beading at all the eyes this woman is putting on her. How this woman can talk to a class of 12-year-olds like that, I don't know. If she did that when my class year was 12, sometime within the fortnight she would have slingshot her way into oblivion. I can recognize where the teachers failed here. I've also been the victim of teachers' ignorance and lack of understanding, exasperating the issue of my ostracization. It's not something I cast blame on for all of my problems. With my brain broadened by the power of perspective, I see how they could have been well-meaning, or how they had beliefs inoculated into them that caused them to mishandle me. I recognize the mistakes but try to not let it ferment in blame and anger, my attempt to make exterior and interior change. Blame feels futile on little people like Ueno, Shimada, Kawai, or Takeuchi sensei. Human beings don't come into consciousness without context. Take the string of someone else's imparted trauma and insensitivity and follow it back in time. Maybe they got it from their parents, but where did the parents get it from? Their parents? World War II? What's the sense in blaming that? In that same interview with Cartoon Brew, Yamada explains that her approach is to not play an objective judge or god of the characters, not judging what they saw, felt, or their circumstances. She is more interested in trying to understand and respect the emotions and actions of the characters. It isn't the point of the movie to bang a gavel and sentence the characters to hell. It's about how Shouya and Shouko, etc. view themselves because of the things etched into reality from their actions or otherwise, and what they can do to cope and change. I don't hate anyone in the story, actually. Each one is an iceberg. There's the tip jutting from the ocean, then the waves shift and suggest more depth than you wanted to give them. In the latter half, sharing a roller coaster booth with Sahara, Shouya learns that her and Ueno are actually on good terms despite their past, and Ueno is artistic? This is the kind of thing you have to take into account when communicating with other people, that they have a whole other life they live outside of your line of sight. Plus, all of the characters' worst actions are peccadillos compared to what billionaires do on a daily basis. I won't come to hate Kawaii until she spots a beautiful landscape in Montana and says, "This would look so much better with a data center spewing acidic orange everywhere." Shouya, now grown up, believes he's as awful as a landlord. Accrued years of shame drips off of him, attempting to timidly reconcile with Shouko through the babble of an Animal Crossing character. Her brain buffers, then her eyes expand at the specter making a reappearance in the tall grass. Her expression morphs between all the things she's wanted to express to him. But presses right and down on the D-pad, hitting the run button to escape this random encounter. The rest of the scene is key to understanding how both of them view Shouya. Shouko is moved that he learned sign language and proposed to be friends, while Shouya doesn't put much emphasis on learning sign language, genuinely not thinking much of it, and degrades himself for having the gall to ask to be her friend. But of course she's receptive, that was what she wanted all those years back, and he learned to talk directly to her, holy fuck! But the most important part of this interaction is what it's missing. An apology-shaped hole, void that has big consequences. By ignoring it, it will slowly grow over the course of the movie as a black hole that threatens to suck up two people who hate themselves. Shouya in the present, compared and contrasted with the Shouya of the past, exemplifies his new and remaining character traits. Miyu Iruno's voice retains that raw-edged accent that Mayu Matsuoka's punkish performance established as Shouya, but is more hesitant and broken now. It's the voice of a guy who didn't learn to talk better to people, but to talk less, stranded on the island of his mind. The staff worked intricately to realize the person known as Shouya Ishida, recording a video of one of the staff walking like a boy slightly bent forward as a reference, changing his posture and speed depending on whether he's alone or with others because his self-preservation instincts will kick in, shrinking into his body while walking with others. Yamada threw herself into inspiration, music, all sorts of things to figure out how to depict Shouya properly. She came to understand how he should come alive on the screen, communicating abstractly to staff like character designer and chief animation director Futoshi Nishia that Shouya has the kind of charm that draws people close to him, a soft heart that pokes through his carapace with kindness and frankness. That heart affects the people around him, his family and growing entourage, and Nagatsuka and Yuzuru especially. Look at how without words or breaks in his movement, he helps down his baby niece Maria, silently shuffling around in her chair like a PS1 tank control protagonist, a velvet touch of his personality. His mom forces him to confront how his life affects others through a heartbroken rampage over his plan to kill himself. His mom bled for him, maybe he's a burden, but he has to stick around, especially after his family of yen he raised for her, excitedly waiting to be recirculated into the economy.
Oh boy, I hope I'm used as a down payment for a Subaru.
Is engulfed into hell, so fix up that calendar and carry on. In the halls and classroom, Shouya feels the liberation of his existence. It's a feeling that I shared once upon a time, when my reputation was sculpted without my input, the collective consciousness of my class chiseling away the marble with interpretations and assumptions without ever talking to me. I ended up doing the same as Ishida, stay quiet unless spoken to and lift into the clouds just above my head. During an attendance call on the first day of school in 7th grade, I began to feel this maw of self-awareness chewing on me, stressing over how I should call out when my name comes. In this same class, I had an incident similar to Shouya, attempting to reconnect with Shimada and others through mutual interests. We had one of those in-class assignments that was essentially busy work. Cut shit out and glue it to a piece of paper, bitch! Oh, and do it in pairs. When my pairing was announced, my newfound partner sitting right next to me, her eyes rolled upwards into her skull and audibly groaned in agony. She didn't stop for approximately 30 seconds. It was almost Gregorian. The eczemic ceiling tiles of the classroom throbbed and eddied into the form of a face sucking me up, but thankfully her incantation failed somehow. Afterwards we didn't talk. Just sliced in silence through pre-drawn tracings to glue them onto those thick, full-colored art class concussive papers molded underneath schools throughout America by Sequoian tree gnomes. I noticed we were given a glue stick without glue and pointed this out to her as I stood up to get a new one. She averted her gaze like she was distracted by the asbestos fairies and snorted under her breath at my olive branch. We never spoke in this class. A year later, we took art class together. I'm ambulating through the class and randomly her gaze lingers on me and she says, "Sup, Logan?" I flounder a bit, stuck within myself at this sudden interaction and give a quiet "sup" back at her before drifting away. I'm not even sure she heard me. In my bleared periphery, her head leans back and she nods, like she understood. I had similar moments where someone would say something to me and their words would jam in my processor and unjam only when it was too late. Such as when Shouya takes several dots to realize Nagatsuka is calling his name. He chooses to close his ears and blur his school life into watercolor, crossing out anyone's face he has to keep in his vision. Yamada describes Shouko as one who can't hear and Shouya as one who won't listen. Even when a classmate extends to him, tapping on his desk to talk about the dirigible hovering above school, ready for the annual Hindenburg disaster recreation of Gifu, offering a matcha latte in a Hindenburg-shaped cup, he can't notice. He's too busy receding inside himself with his tainted memories. Shouya wouldn't listen to Shouko before, and now he won't listen to anyone else. He attempts to shuffle away from Nagatsuka being bullied, but Nagatsuka screams help as their eyelines click together. The bright spotlight of social expectation beams down on you, so help him in a self-deprecating, compromising manner of bike sacrifice. The social anxiety debuff makes him susceptible to peer pressure, even the unspoken kind. If you pissed your pants and batted your eyelashes sadly at him, he'd probably trade pants with you. He has to concoct an excuse to see Shouko with an excuse that he got a club of carbs on sale, and then is pushed around by a kid 1/12 his height. His 6 foot could play point guard for the Washington Wizards ass could roll up Yuzuru into a ball and dunk her into a casket, but doesn't. He lets himself be stopped. And this little goblin is one of my favorite characters. The connotation of Yuzuru's given name is lost in translation. Yuzuru is a masculine name that means to yield to or give up possession of one's rights or heritage. She's been bequeathed the duty of Shoko's traditional male protector, giving up her identity for this purpose. The manga is even more explicit with this if I recall correctly, but you can pick it up through the movie as well. Yuzuru's grandmother explicitly tells her she doesn't try to become her own person outside of protecting Shouko. I've always loved Yuzuru's character and how it dovetails with Shouya and Shouko. She's the first friction in Shouya's attempt to connect with Shouko, walling him and Nagatsuka with lies and reporting Shouya to the Panopticon with a fake Twitter account. This portion where he gets to know Yuzuru and Nagatsuka make up a mini arc for Shouya to develop as a person and represent his development so far. He made a big beat in his story by asking Shouko to be friends, but what are friends? And does the composition of his character congeal with others? Nagatsuka returns Shouya's kind act through an outlandishly kind act of searching for his bike through the rice field like a body and memories of murder. He's the first ex to fall from the face, immediately likable and safe to Shouya. His round character design is unguarding yet unconventional, an outsider like Shouya. Although unlike Shouya, he's as shameless as Dwayne Johnson marketing Black Adam. Crying during movies, calling out to Shouya loudly, holding hands as he jumps like a yip yip dog, and gifting cringe nicknames. And he ain't above throwing hands with a 14-year-old. With a unique design and expressive personality, he became popular amongst the animators. Key animator Tatsuya Sato thought, "Please Jesus, let me get some cuts with Nagatsuka." Nagatsuka gave them wiggle room to move a little outside of the consistent, grounded feel of the movie, such as when he, after being very touchy with her, finds out Yuzuru is a girl and rips himself from this plane, slides through the 4th dimension tube, and pops back in 20 feet away at instant speed. He's not getting hit with any allegations. The CIA can't get his ass that easily. They're gonna have a bitch of a time finding something to ruin his reputation after he denounces America's genocide proxy. Nagatsuka pushes Shouya forward with a tiny speech about friendship. It isn't eloquent, but it's understandable, conveying with touch, soft reciprocating slides of the palm into a firm hold. That's friendship. It defies logic and words. It's a handshake. Self-conscious, anxious people may feel like they need to offer something in order to prove their worth as a friend. I've had these thoughts trickle in before. When I had that period where I felt inherently rejected by the majority, there comes a feeling that acceptance shouldn't come easily. But it should. Companionship and love isn't something to be earned. This affirmation is the push for him to try to talk to Shouko again without an excuse of being useful. He still brings bed just in case to show he still has a ways to go, but to see her again just for the sake of seeing her. This big step in Shouya's life is even demonstrated physically. His newfound item, nagatsuka, removing the yuzuru obstacle like the pencil eraser in Earthbound. It outpours into a moment of earnest communication between Shouko and Shouya. He voices his thoughts about friendship and finds out she shared those same thoughts. After this revelation, they are framed parallel along the two vertical lines of the rule of thirds, intimately sharing a space together, reflecting each other. This sudden vulnerability in the air flusters Shouya and he shifts the subject to carp feeding. What proceeds is a jumble of communication. He asks if she likes feeding the carp out of eyeshot. Oops! He's not used to her yet. She flips through the notebook he gave back, continuing that thread of vulnerability. But his shame is etched there in lead. He doesn't want to face it. It falls into the river and they both end up jumping in, the patterns of their childhood repeating because he doesn't want to confront it. Yuzuru uses this as ammo that she immediately unloads into the air, getting him suspended. It's not gonna be easy. You gotta get through this 5-pound butch starving in a playground play structure tube. He contorts his Tinder average height ass inside, putting himself at Yuzuru's level instead of taking her out. There isn't a fiery confrontation. He doesn't yell at her like Shouko did. Instead, he understands why she did it. She tries to create tension, but he sort of just lets himself be dragged by the other end of the rope. Without tension, she airily tells him to yell at her, and he dismisses her with shy warmth. How Shouya communicates makes an impact on her, making her comfortable teasing him on the way out. The stone walls are crumbling. In a quick cut, she looks like an adopted daughter of the Ishida family in Shouya's clothes. The food, mom, and Maria filling the room with an accepting aroma. She looks down at him taking the hardwood floors to sleep so she can take the futon, and shame wraps around her in a blanket. Shouya is effortlessly compassionate towards Yuzuru, tracking her down in the mist hole to equip her with an umbrella and his old shoes. He matches her brusque nature with a frank kindness, treating her with a tone of, just take it, man. His demeanor isn't charitable, he just thinks she needs to be helped. She asperses that he's only doing nice things for the sake of making himself feel better. Again, he doesn't argue back. He shows awareness of his past transgressions, going too far in his hate for himself, but asserts that he doesn't want to make Nishimiya cry anymore. Like when Nagatsuka used a handshake to break the barrier between him and Shouya, Yuzuru's hand nudges the umbrella aside to gaze up at him, the rain settling as the clouds over her eyes draw back. Acceptance. She snaps the pretense that she is Shoko's boyfriend by revealing she's Shoko's little sister with an impish, open-mouthed smirk. She can't believe she has to explain this. This is the type of thing that makes this movie wrap around me like a blanket. Aoi Yuki's cheeky yet mellow voice performance as Yuzuru sells the ambiance of a younger sibling. Shouya becomes her best friend and she consistently helps him and her sister bridge the gap between each other, while she hangs around with him for the sake of it. And over the interactions between the two siblings, Shouko shows a different side around Yuzuru by acting plain, admonishing, or even teasing, such as accusing Yuzuru of just wanting to eat the bread when she asks Shouya to buy bread for the carp. And this teasing "I told you so" look Shouko gives Yuzuru after the mom says her photography was good enough to be sent to a competition. Yuzuru is the youngest character with a consciousness, sorry Maria, and fits herself with an armor of invulnerability to protect Shouko. So she gravitates towards Shouya, who actually fills that big brother role she has been trying to simulate. Shouya, without any of the social anxiety he has with anyone else, accepts her, insists on staying by her side when she is troubled, direct and comfortable in a way he isn't with anyone else, and so she peels off that armor around him. But when he begins to make this breach, he's slapped silly by Shouko and Yuzuru's gaunt mother, a reaper reminding him that his past mistakes still tarry. He can't escape it that easily. He has to reconnect with his past in Saharu and Ueno, the latter having the sensitivity of a jury duty summons, outspoken about the past as Shouya continues to sidle around it. She doesn't believe him or the situation has changed, stuck on her crush, saying she should have reached out. When he tells her to get off his bike, the feelings of rejection that have been pent up for years pour into her irises. As those feelings come back, she thinks, what is the best way to create solidarity? Plaguing the hard of hearing. She stubbornly thinks the situation hasn't changed, exasperation coming out in an obviously fake, strained, breathy laugh like rubbing on a string instrument. Ueno is harder to understand than the other characters in this adaptation, and I really like it. She's a blunt hammer to the glass permeating the air, forcing characters to confront what is unspoken. She's an uncomfortable underline in this scene, accentuating that Shouya has not directly faced his past to Shouko. He's her former bully trying to get along with her. Is it out of guilt? Is he trying to get on Ellen? Is she going to bring out the stuffed corpse of Akira Kurosawa? Ellen, you shouldn't have. He doesn't tell Shouko what he and Ueno talked about. He doesn't want to confront it, leaving this chance encounter prematurely instead of bridging the gap. No matter how much sign language he knows, there's still miscommunication, asynchronization, too caught up with their faults to notice what the other wants. Shouko tries to conform by forgoing sign language and going verbal when it's obviously hard on him and her. He doesn't compliment her ponytail she tied up for him or even consider that the word she spoke was Tsuki instead of Tsuki. There's no way in his mind that she could love him. Also, the word for moon and to like being separated by a tiny t before a suit is diabolical. This had to be fabricated by some Waluigi looking Japanese man snickering and wriggling his fingers like worms. Because the internet exists now as a strawman argument platform where any possible rancid opinion is poking out in the fields of Reddit and Twitter, you can find people or bots that take issue with this relationship being romantic. It's that kind of reductive discourse the internet loves. To me, it makes sense. A hot guy who actively changed to become an objectively better person for you and is the only guy that knows your preferred language? You should see what women say about Pride and Prejudice. Oh my god. There was a solid month where my Instagram algorithm was giving me posts of women about to kill themselves over Mr. Darcy. Like Shouya just needs longer eyelashes in a scene where he walks in fog with his chest exposed, and the girls will unhook a grenade in their arbor apartment. And when Shouya gladly accepts her gift, giving her actual positive reinforcement for putting herself out there, she swells. She isn't getting that often. At the amusement park, he suddenly realizes that he's in a normal friend group, in a normal adolescence. He's having fun, but he can't help thinking about if he deserves it or not. He loses this precarious balance as Ueno pulls the rug out from under him, tricking him into meeting Shimada. The trauma scriggles around, the tone changes. Shouya admits he might hate Ueno for dragging the past back. The switch flips and she decides it's time to confront Shouko. Ugly, direct, uncomfortable, but honest. It's the only time we hear Shouko convey her true feelings. Ueno is disgusted and underlines the conflict of this movie currently. You aren't trying to talk to me. I have this fondness for characters that embody that one click hole headline, heartbreaking, the worst person you know just made a great point. Ueno says points that I think hearing might help the characters, but paradoxically conveys it through venomous spittle that ends up making it worse. She tells Kawaii that they have no right to criticize Shouya, and I think, yeah, she has a point actually. She's one of my favorite characters in this movie because she's an absolutely necessary perspective to realize the themes of this work to the fullest. She wants people to drop the bullshit and look at the elephant, but isn't entirely convincing because of her own contradiction. She never speaks her crush on Shouya, another person with a desire to connect and a fear of being rejected for it. Everyone adopts their own model of communication molded by their insecurities. Shouya avoids until everything unravels and weirdly delivers callous bluntness to his friends, breaking the ice the friend group stood upon, then carries on asking Shouko to hang out like she didn't just witness the internecine quarrel without being able to hear why, avoiding again, and the elephant between them grows to a suffocating size. Just the two of them, Shouya and Shouko visit Hyoro Park, the site of reversible destiny, an art piece you can walk in, designed by Shusaku Arakawa and wife/artner Madeline Gins to make its visitors rethink their physical and spiritual orientation to the world, believing that changes in bodily perception would lead to changes in the consciousness. If you want an example, watch how a white person transforms after they put on a tank top and do-rag. A challenge to the body to reverse our destinies. They state, to reverse destiny, one must first re-enter destiny, repositioning oneself within the destiny of being slated to live without ever knowing how and why. The re-entering of destiny must be highly calculated. The world and everything in it will have to be transformed into a site of reversible destiny. There is a sense of impending upon shouya and shouko, a gap growing between the two of them. Have they re-entered their destiny, addressed the reality of their feelings and relationship? No. Shouya avoids this destiny, waves it off. Yamada was inspired by a visit to Yoro Park, by the concept of a mathematical limit she saw when she visited this place. My university calculus professor that worked on Star Fox Command would probably go on an unhelpful historical philosophical tangent about this while my homework jump kicks me in the neck, but I will say simply that a limit is two values that aren't equal but become more similar as they approach infinity. That is shouya and shouko. Their values converge as the movie develops. Shouya pretends like everything is fine the way Shouko used to, and now her body language slouches like Shouya's, her smile at its most hesitant. He slips on a slope and she tries to grab him, a reverse of when he tried to grab her on the bridge. But the destiny is the same. Right there in arm's reach, she tries to confront their destiny, but he redirects and forces them to have fun. The sun absorbs her expression. He's not really seeing her. Shame encases you in this hot bubble, your stretched reflection smearing on the wet film between you and reality, overlapping on people. In her video, Healed My Shame Became an Orb, Savannah Brown says that shame is almost a kind of narcissism. It's a simple statement, but with it a map unfurled. I often have memories of moments that make my bones rust in humiliation. Just the other day actually, zipping into my head without cause was a memory of 7 years back. I was sitting with a friend at a table on my college campus's coffee shop, disassociating, likely sucked into the days of mindless scrolling on my phone while the world step printed around me. After a bit, I come back into my body, look up and refocus into a reality where I'm with my friend and 3 other guys I don't know in a Christian association meeting. Whirled around a table like a cult. I've never been inebriated, so I've never known what it's like to come out on the other side of being blackout drunk. But this is my closest reference. For some reason, I did not leave. I didn't even explain that I had just been unconscious and didn't understand where I was, and that I was not ready for the Neo Crusades. My friend was atheist and there to have conversations to contradict them. I miss that little dick. I want to think that is why I stayed, but more likely at this point in my life I was just willing to watch the train roll off the tracks. They introduced themselves around the circle until it was my turn to provide my beliefs. I'm an honest person, my only method of obfuscation is sarcasm, allegory, and hyperbole, and I didn't feel like being an asshole that day, so I wasn't about to be like, yeah, I mean, we celebrate Christmas every year, I guess. Instead, with tone and wording slow motion bullet dodging, I explained that I don't really subscribe to the faith. The leader nodded, okay, and told me that was fine in his feathery, trying to be tolerant Christian voice while no one looked at me. I don't remember anything else really. Maybe they donned some armor and started stabbing the baristas. For some reason, when I remembered this the other day, I felt bad about my behavior, not that they're being scammed for life, but then I thought to myself, am I actually concerned about how they feel, or am I just concerned with how they perceive me? And oil sank into my rusted bones. Also, now that I'm writing this, I remember that one of them harassed my friend and sent pictures of dead fetuses to change her mind about being pro-abortion. So, I don't think I'll lose any more sleep over this. To an extent, shame is selfish to others and to yourself for assuming the damage you are capable of dealing. For being yourself. Shouya caused damage to Shouko, but she also thought her existence was causing damage to those around her. Yamada said, when you're unable to think positively about yourself, that also gets in the way of understanding others. You don't see the inherent value you have to others, you don't see what is actually hurting others. Shouya doesn't see how his hurt is hurting Shouko. Shouko doesn't see how others love her, how Shouya savors her laugh, how happy he feels that they share the sensations of fireworks inside of themselves. Annie Ernaux says in her memoir, aptly named Shame, she writes, "The worst thing about shame is that we imagine we are the only ones to experience it." A subconscious dread begins to build to the movie's most intense moment. Shoko's expression erased by the sun, Shouko pushing Yuzuru to use her photos for something besides her, a future without her. Pops of fireworks and crowded, happy chatter of families and friends, hard cut to Shouko eclipsed in a silent sky. Throughout this movie, I built a familiarity with certain phrases in sign language. "See you later," Shouya tells her. She hesitates for a tad too long and instead signs, "Thank you." It's apparent what this unsettling feeling rustling in the reeds of my hairs was trying to tell me by the time I see her on the balcony. Shouya doesn't realize it until he sees her hovering over the edge, an edge he knows. The fireworks don't snap her out of her stupor. They cover up the raw, violent feelings of Shouya crashing into furniture to reach her. In that moment, that realization that they share the same feelings, he's able to grab her hand finally. In a mixture of heartbreak, catharsis, all the realizations fall out of him like a prayer to stop her from falling. Like he will do anything to reverse this destiny. He should stop running away, look people in the face and talk to them. To change it all so she can survive. And they swap values as he falls into the river Styx. Shoko's deafness isn't over-dramatized, nor is her character simplified. Yamada stated she did not want to have a biased view when depicting Shouko. She believes that thinking Shouko is poor because she has a hearing impairment is imposing selfish assumptions onto her. She says, of course, it is one of the obstacles she confronts, but I don't think she herself wants sympathy from everyone for that. It was more important to look closely at her, how she looks at the world and how she thinks about it. Not sympathy, but respect. Shouko's falls come from, like Shouya, being caught up in her own shame, in that feeling that her existence is a burden. I've never had suicidal tendencies. That is one of many instances where I feel the kiss of my circumstances. I have shared Shouko's feelings of being a burden. I grew up neurodivergent, basically the reason I experienced all that ostracization I've mentioned. I'm not going to get too specific so RFK Jr. won't chop my head off with an axe and eat it, but to have that self-awareness about your differences can be tough. That how you irrevocably are doesn't fit within the molds of the machine. It makes you aware of your relation to others, that in some way or another, no matter how much you try, how much you force yourself to say words you can't understand, you weigh down someone. But that is how everyone exists. In order to connect, to experience the human condition, we have to weigh on others and take their weight, physical or emotional. Shouya's mom will bleed for him, burn up the economy because she loves him. Shouya works his ass off to pay her back because he loves her. Yuzuru will take pictures of dead animals and paste them around Shoko's world to convince Shouko to not kill herself. Aoyuki's voice creaking in confusion at how she could have convinced the big sister she loves to stay. Her heart bending under that weight she wants. Shouko didn't consider how her death would affect others. Her self-hatred is selfish. This is vocalized through the only person that can, Ueno, although characteristically in the worst possible way, throwing down with daughter and mother as Yuzuru watches, her emotions draining. Shoko's apology to Shouya's mom is the first apology she profoundly and viscerally means. Having swapped places, Shouko is now the one reaching out to mend things. Shouya and Shoko's values become closer and closer, sharing dreams of each other and scrambling to the same place. Shouya ripping himself up from the river Styx. They mirror each other's gestures, synchronizing. He finally apologizes, unclogging all of the feelings to spill out limpidly. The feelings she has, he shared too. They speak clearly in a way that both of them and the audience can understand for the first time. They resolve to live together with hands signing something we can all understand. The koi fish makes the first ripple of change, from just having a conversation and understanding each other. I see how maybe I have been hurt by others from them trying to control my perception of them. How people I knew convinced themselves that others were judgmental towards them to fit their own twisted perception of themselves. I see how maybe I have hurt others to prove that I'm worthy of love. Because no one ever told us that mistakes, that imperfections are okay, that, quote, none of our transgressions were or are related to the qualities of our souls, as Savannah Brown says. This movie feels more pertinent in the age of the panopticon. Any possible mistake we can make can be beamed to upwards of millions of people on the internet permanently. That self-awareness is suffocating. To live is to risk the perception people have of you. As they took up the track, Sahara says that she was too scared to ride the roller coaster in grade school. Now that she is older, she decided she should try it and decide if it was scary or not. It is scary, but she belts out an exhilaration as they plummet down. To heal shame, you have to try to do things that make the nerves flare in SOS. It will be scary, but relieving. I think the chance someone will record you on your date is smaller than the internet will make you believe. But you have to power through that possibility of you shitting yourself across a baddie over an acai bowl getting posted on TikTok. Koe no Kotachi demonstrates to me that it's worth it. Surviving and even thriving in all of the clumsy communications, the candid depiction of tragic topics, balanced out by a world that feels warm and the pastel colors, the life within frames, and the little felicities. The quality of the movie exemplifies the worth of trying to communicate. Yamada herself is a director that struggles with verbal communication, often using ideas and gesticulations to communicate what she wants. In a roundtable interview, the aesthetics team amusingly reminisces on the time and struggle it took to achieve Yamada's desired results, and she talked in abstract terms. Shinohara compared it to grasping at straws, a cycle of drawing and submitting until stumbling on an answer. Director of photography, Kazuya Takao, said that there were times where it was hard to understand Yamada's sensibilities, but as production carried on, his own sensibilities began to approach hers before he knew it. That was when he felt he grasped the root of what Yamada saw in her head. Living, communicating, making a damn movie is trial and error. Mistakes are what you make to bridge any sort of gap. In the ending, those are bridges everyone tries to cross. Shouya decides to accept Ueno, one of the last exes to fall. Shouya and Shoko's moms become besties. Yuzuru takes pictures of life soaring. Ueno tries to insult Shouko in the latter's language now, closing in just an inch. The resolution of the movie feels like when the warm weather starts to poke out of winter into spring. That warmth is love. This is a love story between Shouya and Shouko. The small moments at the school festival where he confides in her about his anxieties and she clumsily helps him. But that in itself is a gateway to something bigger. Love is expanding. In love for each other, they find the possibility of love for themselves, and through that, love for the world. The change Shouya resolves for isn't easy and doesn't come immediately, but with the presence of friends, people who stick with him for the sake of sticking with him, it doesn't feel as strenuous to lift up his head and open his ears, to reach outside of yourself and see the world for what it is. The little spits of ugliness, but the sparks of smiles and friends, and the people you love, and strangers. The world is in a flux of color. You can love this. Just look at it, hear it. You can love this.